Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Deku become a Cyborg Hero Part 3. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video and also share this video with your friends. I have created my other videos playlist, there you can watch my all videos easily, check out as well. Let's start this video. Izuku shook his head. I disagree, I think it does have to be him. As he stepped into the chalked off area. This entire time you haven't been taking me seriously, and if I want to be a hero, I want to be respected. I don't want anyone doubting whether I deserve to be here or not. So, it has to be the number one, that way, no one can say I didn't earn my place. This child, completely unaware about how seriously we have been taking him since his explanation began. The principal nodded and then called out to his representative, All Might, you don't need to use the suppressors. All Might stared back in confusion. Isn't that a little much? He hasn't even had a single formal lesson. The mouse dog bear man shouted back, I don't think that matters this time. Looking at Izuku once more, have you ever fought someone before? I did plenty of training, but yeah, if it wasn't for my first real fight, I wouldn't be here, Izuku said as he sized up All Might, before he began bouncing on his toes, limbering himself up. Momo looked over at the teachers, many of them whispering or in present make situation, whisper shouting a bet about how long the cocky kid lasts. Izuku, she shouted, making sure to get everyone's attention. If you hurry up we can make sure we have enough time to watch a movie together. She smirked, in our new bed. The addition of our to her comment drew weird looks from the sidelines, but it threw them out of their not discreet disparaging comments that Izuku could clearly hear. I'd like that, he stopped hopping, and put up his arms, and addressed his opponent, come on All Might, looks like I got a hot date tonight, so let's do this. He closed his non-mechanical eye, and the optics his mother changed to a high-speed camera. Something he was glad he had picked up in training, it would allow him to see objects coming to him at a much higher speed than he would normally be able to process, which was only because the doctor decided to do a few more live fire tests than his mother knew about. And he decided that if a camera could slow down a bullet so he could see it, his eye could do that too if it absorbed one. And boy was Izuku sure he needed one because the moment the signal started All Might was in front of him, bearing a powerful fist down onto the much smaller Izuku. But with the camera operating at maximum capacity, All Might only looked to have the speed of a championship boxer, which was still impressively fast, but manageable. So it shocked quite a few of the teachers watching the fight when Izuku blocked it with his forearm. The Nanomachines didn't completely negate the blow, because Izuku still slid back a few inches, just from the weight difference alone, but they did withstand the impact, and only dented slightly, which given a few seconds would repack themselves into their natural state. Seconds he wasn't sure he had. Because All Might had experience with people who can take a punch, the trick was to keep laying into them, because there were maybe a handful of people who could survive his sustained assault. Izuku from his studying and training knew All Might preferred a boxer's style of combat, very American, very effective when you had the speed and power to back it up too. As Izuku remembered an old proverb as he ducked, weaved, and blocked the mighty barrage coming his way. I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. And did All Might practice? In a sense it was the beauty of All Might's style, it was simple, kids, and even other heroes imitated it daily for play or real life. But for All Might who threw these devastating blows, daily for the last decade or more. Each one was ferocious, deadly, and honestly scary. Being on the receiving end of this, Izuku could feel the pressure, even assured that it was just a sparring match. He understood what few people besides villains felt, the true presence of the number one hero. Izuku muttered as he moved, even if he's holding back, and even if he's weakened from a past injury, this is no joke. But based on how he's been seen in public in t-shirts, and even shorts that one time in the Hero News Weekly, Summer of Justice edition, the injury he sustained is not in his extremities, since his head is uncovered, and he was seen after that gap with hair. Unless he wore a wig then that rules out a head injury. All Might faltered in his attack when he heard his opponent announcing his strategy to find his weak spot, which he will admit is a good one if you know it's there. This gap allowed Izuku to pepper a few blows of his own back at the number one, gauging reactions when he hit the pro's body. Based on that, shoulder, hip, and joint damage is unlikely, unless his quirk relied on a specific muscle group, but I doubt that. Leaving organ failure, but Izuku paused his rambling for a moment. All Might's breathing sounds labored, despite being in what many would call peak physical condition, and this fight not having gone on for more than a minute, his stamina shouldn't be taxed like this. Meaning the injury to him affected his lung. All Might redoubled his assault, shit this kid is smart, piecing together this during a fight, man did we get a winner with this one. Izuku's nanomachines reaching their limit. On that assumption, part of his quirk is more like flexing a muscle, keeping it oxygenated, and that means Izuku went low, driving an uppercut into All Might's gut, the nanomachines covering his non-metal hand for a devastating punch. I can unflex it. For a moment, All Might in a cloud of smoke went into his true form, shocking Izuku and Momo, before he coughed and sucked in a deep breath, regaining his size and vigor. Well thought out, young Midoriya, but can you capitalize on that information? The pro hero's mighty voice rang out through the building. Because it's one thing to know a weakness and another to exploit it. The pro hero took large steps to come back into his strike zone. I know you have something. That punch was not from a quirkless person. If you want to go to the UA, you will need to share this with us. We cannot train you otherwise. Izuku took a step back, unsure of what to do at this point. Momo saw his hesitation. Izuku, take off your shirt, he's right. Izuku and the others paused for a moment before Midnight shouted in affirmation. Yeah, woo, take it off. Momo shook her head. Not like that, but they do need to know about them, and now's as good a time as any. Realizing she was right, he reached under the hem of his jacket and pulled up, All Might allowing him to disrobe undisturbed, seeing as he is the one who requested it. The teachers gasped when they took his form. Scars littered the boy's body, large slashes across his chest, and patchwork of injuries, some long since healed on his exposed flesh. But to them the most telling was the large black metal arm the young man sported. What kind of quirk is that? Nedzu asked. Izuku shook his head. It's not. How about after this I give you my story? Sound fair? Nedzu chuckled. Yes, tea time does sound remarkable. Do continue your spar. Izuku, recognizing that he was well into All Might's reach, quickly hopped back as the hero tried to make a grab. But All Might managed to graze him as he did, which even a small touch, with that immense power behind it, sent Izuku flying, in part to him being so much lighter than his opponent. Izuku hit the ground, not roughly, but he didn't immediately try to get up, which everyone with more experience teaching noticed was wrong. Momo, having spent the most time with Izuku, slowly came to a horrifying realization about what Izuku was going through. All Might, stop. She loudly screamed. But he had already lunged. He was in the air when Izuku thrashed around violently, screaming to let his leg go. Momo and the other teachers were moving quickly, but All Might's speed collided with Izuku's wild movements, and the nanomachine foot planted itself firmly into the hero's face, sending the titanic hero flying across the building and out the ceiling from the blow. Fuck, Nedzu swore. Ryo, Sekijiro, go find All Might and make sure he's okay. That kick sounded like it hurt. They watched as Momo tried to carefully approach Izuku, calling out to him. Sir, my quirk's not doing anything, as always stated. Momo shouted back, because he doesn't have one. Namuri, put him down. Nedzu ordered as the hero tore her costume. The aroma wafted from her body, and she directed it towards the thrashing teen. His movements faded into peaceful sleep quickly. Momo, who had already made herself a mask, quickly ran over to her boyfriend and pulled his body to her, and she began to gently rock him back and forth, stroking his hair and whispering soothing words to him. How long will he be out? Midnight walked over. For a few minutes. Momo sniffed. I think this test is over now. Nedzu agreed. Yes, I think now would be an excellent time for tea. Izuku was slowly stirred from his sleep to stare up towards the ceiling, however part of it was blocked by two large hill-shaped objects. For a moment he questioned how hard All Might hit him when he realized what those shapes actually were. Momo, Izuku said as he sat up quickly. Then clutched his head in pain. Ow, too fast. Momo reached over and gently laid Izuku back on her lap. Just rest for a moment. Man, I don't even remember how All Might got me, but wow did he get me, Izuku said to his girlfriend, oblivious to his surroundings. A coughing sound drew his attention. Actually, young Midoriya, it would seem that you got me instead, a skeletal-looking man said. Hey, All Might, is that, oh right, Izuku groaned. Yup, I remember now. Looking around the room as the pro heroes drank their tea. So what happened? Momo moved a few strands of his hair off his forehead. You had another memory. Oh, ooh, how bad was it? Izuku asked, since she would be able to gauge it. You screamed, let go of my leg. I think we both know what that was about, Momo quietly said. Ah fuck, that bad, Izuku inquired. Momo nodded in response. I think we deserve an explanation though, Nedzu said as he set his cup of tea down on its tray. Izuku, feeling more settled, sat up slowly. Yeah, so I'm not sure where to start. Izawa looked at the teens on the sofa. How about the arm, what exactly is that? Izuku looked at his exposed arm and looked to Momo, who weaved her fingers through his metal ones. Taking a breath, Izuku began his tale. A little over a year ago, I got hurt badly. Momo coughed a little and tugged his hand. Getting the message, he started over. Okay, fine, a little over a year ago, I met Momo. We were both having bad days. Then these two villains, Bearhead and Monster Princess, they found her, us. He rubbed his thumb against the back of her hand. Ryo nodded. I heard of them, real pieces of work, kidnapping, murder, rape, doesn't matter to them, as long as it hurts other people they'll do it. The wolf hero snarled, even tracking their scent has done nothing to bring us closer to catching them. Yeah, and they were going to take Momo, and do things, and I guess just kill me, almost did too. Izuku confessed. I told Momo to run, we weren't that far from the alleyway, and then she could get help, or at least get away. Oh. Izuku cried out. Stupid, at least get away, Momo glared at him. As if you deserved to die in my stead. It was the best thing I could think of at the time, Izuku whined. This wasn't the first time they had this discussion. She was never happy at how willing Izuku was to sacrifice himself, and he didn't regret doing so. But anyway, Monster Princess's whip took my arm, and bare head, he well. Momo spoke up, 7 crushed ribs, the rest cracked, spinal cord broken, concussions that looked like someone took a sledgehammer to him, multiple ruptured organs, and she paused for a moment. He ate his leg. Snipe glanced up, what in tarnation do you mean, ate his leg? Izuku reached down with his right arm and pulled up the pant leg, revealing the metal underneath, literally ate it. He dropped the cloth back down. I don't really remember what I was thinking at the time, on account of me dying, but maybe I was hoping he'd choke on it or something. Momo chuckled, if only we could be so lucky. So this explains how he got hurt, now explain how he got fixed. Higari asked. So you all know my family's company, Momo started, knowing that she should provide the technical explanation. We are still I guess, developing a new technology, something theorized in pre-Quirk days, but study halted, as with most technology. Nanomachines. Our loader moved quicker than anyone had seen him move in a long time. Really, these are all nanomachines. He gleefully approached Izuku who nervously pressed himself against his girlfriend before Izawa's bandages pulled his coworker back. Down boy, Ryo jokes. You're scaring the poor thing. Sorry it's just, these are the holy grail of robotics, the pinnacle of human ingenuity, Higari fangirled. If I could study them, oh the inventions, the gear. Yeah, Dr. Hijimshikina had something to say about that, Izuku mentioned, he said, if Higari thinks he is qualified to even be in the same room as this amazing invention, then someone needs to replace his wind turbines with his ass, because that's a lot of hot air. For a moment everyone was stunned at the words, then suddenly Power Loader laughed. If that Rintaro Wanna thinks he has what it takes to challenge me, that jerk knows what to do. Since you speak so casually about him, might I ask what your relationship is with him? Izuku rubbed the back of his head. He's handled most of my training after getting the machines, he's unconventional but effective, Izuku admitted before quietly adding, just wish he'd stop hitting on my mom. Well if you manage to keep his attention for about a year, then you get a passing vote from me. I'm excited to see what you can do, Higari leaned back in his chair. Higari, Namuri whined. You weren't supposed to reveal that we would be voting, it was going to look so cool when we all did it together. Our loader slapped his forehead, right sorry, got caught up, my bad everyone. Wait what? Izuku looked around the room. The principal coughed, well, despite your quite impressive performance, we still need to vote on the matter of your attendance, seeing as we all will be in some manner or another teaching you at this school. So, what do you all think then? Izuku looked around the room. Young Midoriya, you have much potential, even without those machines you would be a formidable opponent, as the hero's mind is their greatest tool. I would like to see you hone yours here at my alma mater, All Might said raising his thumb. Snipe spoke next, you're a tenacious kid, and you work like a straight shooter. I would be proud to see you become a young sheriff. Lifting his own thumb. You put All Might through the ceiling, that was hilarious, I just don't want you in my class. Sekijiro said, which means you're Shota's problem. Lifting his thumb. Now wait just a minute, that's bullshit, Nedzuhi can't just decide that can he? Aizawa turned to his boss. Well that does hardly seem fair to dismiss a stu-nose goes, he quickly shouted. Both teachers scrambled quickly to put their finger on the tip of their nose. Aizawa already knew he lost because he flinched for a second. Damn it, we need to come up with a better system to resolve disputes, he grumbled and looked at Izuku and Momo who were staring blankly at the teachers. You got talent, you can analyze a situation and make good decisions, you're a bit creepy with it, and if we can get you to not say it out loud, then I think you might be worth training, so I guess. He raised his thumb. Chio sat sipping her tea. I agree he's smart, but in that story, he's a lot like all of you already, she glared at the still active heroes. Rushing into danger and getting himself hurt, but just maybe we can teach him to avoid doing that, would be a first. She raised her thumb as well. Well I for one, like what I see, Namuri purred. I think if we cleared our schedules for some playtime I could be inclined to raise my whittle thumb. Giving the teen boy a half-lidded look. Momo defensively pulled Izuku closer to her, mine, back off. Oh, did you think you weren't invited, because she looked the younger girl up and down? Because I said, I like what I see, she teased. Wow, so desperate that she has to prey on children, tut tut, ectoplasm admonished. Can't wait to tell that to you. Namuri slumped back in her seat. Well, he already told you all, I haven't gotten any in over a year. Pointing her finger accusingly at the boy. He needs to take responsibility. Are you being serious right now? Ken asked from his cement throne. His blocky form made angles more comfortable for him than cushions. Of course I'm joking, Namuri waved him off. Unless they were okay with it, then I'm not, she added with a wink. She too raised her thumb, then wiggled her free hand next to her head, extending her thumb and pinky while mouthing call me. She's not going to be our homeroom teacher, is she? Momo eyed the female teacher. Not until your third year, Nedzu said as he sipped from his cup. Yup, when you're all 18, Namuri cackled. Izuku patted his girlfriend's hand. Don't worry, since she hasn't had a date in 13 months, then that means she can't get any of her students either, so he consoled her. However, his comment made Namuri wail out loud, which made Izuku instinctively comfort a distressed person, or they could all just be ugly, or gay, I'm not one to judge. The other teachers stared wide-eyed at the teenage boy trying and failing to soothe the situation. Oh wow, I want him here just to see what problems he gets into, this will be my new soap, Ryo added as he put up his thumb. Really, you want more drama, of all things in your life? Ectoplasm said, he is good though. I want to see him in real action one day. Maybe I'm a little biased since he lost some limbs like me, but he's got my vote, sticking out his thumb. Little listener, I have heard plenty of stories, and yours, Hisashi fake sniffled and dabbed his eyes. Oh, it's just so tragic. How could we turn down such a poor child? He flung his arms, one covering his eyes, and the other pushed behind him as he looked up to the light. Just take my thumb, he laughed as he pushed his hand out. 13 raised his thumb, you already have displayed you are willing to rescue others, now let's train you to save more. Ken set down his cup of tea. I agree with their assessments, you are a talented individual, he slowly put out his own thumb. Izuku looked around the room, seeing every teacher with their thumb extended, and Nedzu spoke up. Well then Mr. Midoriya, it seems we have a consensus, I am pleased to welcome you to your Hero Academia. Backpacks, Momo listed off the first item. Izuku held up two near identical black satchels. Check, he called out his reply. Pens, pencils, paper, she said as she marked off the first box. Looking over, Izuku held 2 unopened packs of pens, 2 boxes of pencils, 4 reams of paper, and a dozen notebooks. Check. Izuku placed the supplies he was holding in both bags evenly. You sure that's enough? Momo chuckled. I mean, we are going to the UA, I'm sure we'll see a bunch of quirks that you're going to want to document. Laugh it up, but ever since the Nanomachines got put in, my note-taking has only gotten more meticulous. Izuku snarked back at his roommate/girlfriend, and he was right, his notes used to be highly detailed, and they still were, but now that he could zoom in with his mechanical eye. And the precision granted by the Nanomachines in his arm meant that the notes he took were minuscule in size, but just as detailed. A single notebook now holding the information that 6 of his old ones did. Phones, keys, wallets, ID badges, Momo, then asked for the important items. They were both smart enough that if they forgot their notes would be able to remember what was taught, especially on the first day when it was bound to be more like introductions than anything else. But they couldn't forget those items, the ID badges most of all, those were what allowed them to get into the facility. Good, and the train will be at the station in 20 minutes, and it's a 10-minute walk, Momo said as she checked off the last few boxes on the list, then slung her bag over her shoulder. The pair walked out the door, and Izuku locked it behind them, as they realized it wasn't a nice neighborhood, not a crime-ridden one either, but it never hurt to take precautions. Just because they could afford to replace all the items inside 100 times over, doesn't mean they should have to. The walk was fairly quiet, both of them having made sure to walk it a few times to remember the way home from school. If the situation arose that they were both tired, it allowed them to not have to worry about getting lost. So, what do you think we'll do on the first day? Izuku asked Momo as they headed to the currently uncrowded station. The raven-haired teen shrugged, probably nothing more than any other first day. We would introduce ourselves to our classmates, tell them about our quirks, meet the teachers, a syllabus, and maybe some like introduction work. Thinking back to the first days of school at Aichi, it should be about the same as both are incredibly prestigious schools. Awkwardly trying to introduce yourself to people who already know you because of your family, business, and fortune. Knowing that the people who hang around you are only interested because of that and not at all because you are a wonderful person. Yaoyorozu was lost in her thoughts when Izuku nudged her. Hey, we're at the station, sleepyhead. I wasn't sleeping, I was just, you know, Momo waving her hand circularly. Izuku nodded, worried that everyone you meet will hate you or worse, see you for your family, future or fortune, and not give a lick about Momo. The girl stared at him wide-eyed. I'm not the only one who mutters when they are nervous, you know. He reached and grabbed her around the waist to pull her closer to him. Besides, even if it's not worth a whole lot, you still have me. Thanks, Izuku. Momo hugged him and let go when they saw a few other students wearing UA uniforms, but being that this was going to be their first day, they couldn't tell if they were first years like themselves or upperclassmen. As it were, many mutations and some specific quirks made it a nightmare to determine how old someone might be based solely on one's appearance. And considering how mature Momo looked and how innocent Izuku was, it was annoying but not uncommon for someone to call them big sis and little brother. Their parents thought it was a gas and would tease them about it up until Dr. Hijimshikina ruined it by saying he was always fascinated by the dynamics of an incestuous relationship, but as an only child could never act on that. Izuku thought that was a nice birthday gift, albeit a strange one, getting their parents to stop teasing them about something. The two teens stood close to one another, unsure of how to start a conversation with any of the other UA students, so they quietly watched as some groups formed while others sat alone as the train rolled its way along the track. It wasn't a long trip, especially because in the early morning hours even villains like to sleep, so there were no delays due to the train needing to stop. The walk up to the main building was less intense as this time they were not being escorted by two pro heroes to test whether Izuku had the mettle to attend the famous institution. Which meant they were able to take in the sights at a much more leisurely pace. Seeing that besides the large main building numerous other structures littered the site. The inside of the main building was just as nice, clean and polished flooring stretched down long and tall hallways. Light filtered through gigantic glass windows warming the building even in the cool morning air. They along with another student found the wanted classroom easily, the tall boy in front of them quickly entering the classroom. Momo walked over to sit in the back of the classroom as she liked to have a nice view of the area, plus all the cool kids sat in the back and Momo was just insecure enough to tightly hold on to that belief. Didn't want to seem like a nerd who sat up front to see the board better. The only other student who was in the room as Izuku followed his girlfriend so he could have prime real estate to sit next to her until he heard rapid footsteps approaching him from behind. Turning on his heel, ready to fight, he found his hand grasped and wrenched up and down. "Ah, the green-haired boy from the entrance exam," the boy with glasses said robotically. Yeah." Izuku was unsure of who this person was. "I wanted to apologize, I had thought you were a distraction when we first met, but I can see you truly are the perfect example of a hero, saving another contestant when all others ran away even at no benefit to yourself," Iida confessed. "Well, it wasn't that impressive, I just sort of did what anyone would do, you know," Izuku shrugged. "Except no one else did, we were too preoccupied with it being a test to think about how our actions would reflect on the real scenario," Iida responded. "But let me properly introduce myself, I am Iida Tenya, I recently graduated from Saumei Junior High." Izuku gingerly pulled his hand free from the strange tall teen who had not stopped shaking it while he was introducing himself. "Midoriya Izuku, Aichi Private Academy." Then he motioned to Momo who was patiently watching in amusement the two boys interacting, "And this is Yaoyorozu Momo, also from Aichi Private Academy." Iida quickly jutted his hand out to shake Momo's. "A pleasure to meet you. I am Iida Tenya." "Yes, I overheard, Izuku," Momo said slowly as she extricated her own hand from the energetic boys. "Let's get seated, class should be starting soon." The two seated themselves and watched as other students began to trickle into the class. The boy not much taller than Izuku with ash blonde hair walked in and quickly sat in the front row and slammed his feet on top of his desk and leaned back. Izuku nudged Momo, catching her attention, in a whisper so as not to bring attention to himself. "I think I know that kid." "Which one?" she responded looking at the students. "Blonde hair, getting into an argument with Iida," Izuku said as Bakugo threatened Iida. "Got a name to go off of?" Momo inquired. Izuku shook his head. "No, I just feel like I should be able to place his face with someone from my past." The door to the classroom opened again, and a girl with brown hair framing a round face slowly stuck her head in. "Ah, broken foot girl," Izuku called out when he recognized her from the entrance exam. The nervous girl's face lit up in embarrassment and recognition. "Oh, it's you from the entrance exam, the strong kid." She walked towards the back of the room before another voice stopped her. "If you are here to socialize, get out, I don't have time to waste on teen drama," Aizawa said as he rolled into the room, clad in his signature sleeping bag. "And I might be your homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa," he tiredly said as he unzipped his sleeping bag. A few of the students murmured about the strange choice of words. But only Iida was brave enough, or just unaware enough to ask for clarification. "Sir, what do you mean you might be? Are you a faculty member or not?" "I work here," Aizawa started, "and I teach the Wanna Hero course. But just because you met the requirements at the entrance exam doesn't mean you met mine." He reached into his bag and pulled out a tracksuit. Any teenager with a hammer could have passed the exam with an acceptable score. "Because of that I want to know if that's the best you can do, otherwise teaching you is a waste of time." Isn't it a bit harsh, sir? A pink girl with horns on her head said. It's only the first day. Izawa shrugged, telling Midoriya he almost got kicked out before the first day. His arm raises to point to the back of the room. Izuku shrank in his seat as all the other students looked at him with mixed expressions. Hurry up, we don't have all day, get to the track outside, Izawa told the class as he walked out of the room. The boys' locker room was eerily quiet as Izuku tried his best to ignore that the other guys were glancing at him. So dude, what did sensei mean when he said you would have been expelled before you even started? A boy with spiky red hair asked. Well you see it's Izuku stuttered, unsure how to respond. Bitsuki instead barreled over and shoved his finger into Izuku's chest. It's because Deku is a quirkless fuck. So he had to have cheated to get in. A cheater, dude not manly, Kirishima said as he backed away from the green-haired teen. Iida perked up and quickly walked over. Quirkless, that's impossible, no quirkless person could have done the things I saw him do in the entrance exam. Well you see, Izuku started to say, but he was cut off as an arm was draped over his shoulder. Ui spoke to a flamboyant blonde boy who had walked over. This Garkin was most helpful in the exam. PCH, whatever, Bakugo stomped away grumbling. He's not going to be able to cheat his way through today. At this declaration the rest of the boys changed and filed out of the room, Izuku nervously rubbing his mechanical arm as he brought up the rear. Took you a few minutes more than I expected, Aizawa said as his students arrived at the field. Why does it matter how long it takes to change? A teen with enlarged elbows asked. How long it takes a hero to respond to a crisis, for civilians and victims can mean the difference between life and death, Izuku mumbled. A few of the students nearest to him nodded in agreement or understanding, but those further away couldn't really make out what was said. Boy, shut up Deku, no one wants to hear you, Kitsuki shouted, loud voice clearly and easily heard by all. Hey, it's too early for that volume, Aizawa grunted as he twirled his finger in his ear to alleviate the ringing from the outburst. Since you seem the most energetic, you can go first, Aizawa told Bakugo as he tossed him a baseball. Throw this as far as you can without leaving the circle, use your quirk however you need to score as high as you can. Now we're talking, Kitsuki cackled as he entered the chalked ring. He bounced the ball in his hand before winding back his arm. He whipped his body, twisting while he screamed, die. A resounding explosion caused the windows of the nearby building to shake and many of the students to cover their ears. Izuku heard a startled squeal to his left. Hey, are you okay? He asked a purple-haired girl who was covering her ears tightly and whimpering. She shook her head quickly and Izuku sized her up, sound-related quirk. And the girl nodded her head at the question. At this confirmation Izuku walked over to Momo. Hey, can you make a pair of earplugs or something? He pointed at Jiru who was still covering her ears. Seems like this might be a problem for her throughout the day if that kid keeps making explosions like that. Momo looked over at how everyone else had recovered, while one of her classmates was still struggling to overcome the loud noise. She quickly walked over and extended her hand as she formed the silicone earplugs. Jiru took the earplugs and thanked Momo when someone asked irritatedly, hey, are we allowed to use our quirks to help others in this? Before Aizawa could answer, Izuku shot back. If someone's quirk can hinder others, like his clearly does to her, then helping should be allowed. The pro hero instructor just shrugged, sounds reasonable, I'll allow it. He was prepared to deny the student and tell her that she had to overcome her weaknesses, but Izuku had a point. If he stopped someone from helping, he would be a tad hypocritical if he didn't stop someone from hindering. As the students went down the line tossing the baseball, since Aizawa didn't want to walk back over here until the students were done, Izuku was muttering as he watched the students use their quirks, commenting on his impression of them. Momo took her turn and created a cannon for launching the baseball. While the cannon created one of the highest scores, it clearly took up a lot of her lipocytes. Izuku thought about some of the sessions that the two of them had when they discussed Momo's quirk and how to make it more versatile. Since she was concerned about how much she was improving in the few months leading up to the start of UA. The discussion between them turned to how she developed her objects, and the two realized that she could develop her objects using materials that normally have long processing time, such as titanium, which would replace the much denser iron when creating objects, thereby conserving fatty cells that she stored in her body. But Izuku released a new problem now that he could see her in action using the new building process. She makes big objects with abandon. Jiru slid over to Izuku, being the only one who could understand his quick mutterings. Why, is that a problem? Izuku looked up quickly, startled out of his musings. What? Jiru, nervous that she did something wrong, stammered a reply. Sorry, I shouldn't have eavesdropped or anything. No, that's fine, Izuku quickly corrected the girl. Just thinking, you know. Jiru nodded, so what did you mean by that comment though? Oh well, she made a cannon to launch the baseball, and while it's fine for something like this, Izuku began to explain. In the field she may not know how many things she may need. If she made something smaller, like a potato gun, while not going to achieve the same high score, it would still have performed higher than most of the other throws. That would leave her with a lot more leukocytes stored in case something unexpected comes up. Jiro understood what the nice teen was saying. I think I get it, ration your strength because a crisis could suddenly get worse, and you might not have downtime to recover. The discussion between the two was interrupted when the pro hero spoke up. Midoriya, stop flirting, Aizawa called out after Momo moved the cannon she created out of the way for the next person. Just because you don't have to worry about expulsion like the rest of your classmates do, doesn't mean you should take this lightly. His comment drew more confused looks from his classmates. Get over here and show them why only All Might performed better in the entrance exam than you did. What? Jiro looked as Izuku strolled over to the circle. Momo taking up a spot next to her. Hello, I am Momo Yaoyorozu. Momo introduced herself to the girl that her boyfriend was conversing with. Aokajiru, she responded. What did sensei mean when Izuku didn't have to worry and that thing about All Might? Momo opened her mouth, then shook her head. It'll just be easier if you see for yourself, she said as she nodded to Izuku. Izuku, who had taken his place in the circle, turned to Aizawa. So Eraserhead, what's the score to beat? 705.2 meters, the tired teacher answered as he reset his counting machine. Izuku nodded and stared at the ball for a moment, then in the blink of an eye, flung his arm out and released a white sphere which rocketed off at ludicrous speed. Aizawa waited for the machine to beep. 14.6 kilometers, the pro hero displaying the screen for the rest of the class. Jiro looked from Izuku to Momo, preparing to ask a few questions when the sound of rapid explosions caused her to cover her ears. Even if she had in earplugs, the noise was still loud. Deku. Bakugo roared as he rushed his quirkless former classmate. His pops and stride were both stopped as thick bands wrapped around him. What the? Do you think this school is a joke? Aizawa chastised the struggling teen. To think our standards have slipped so much that we'd let in a rabid animal, the pro hero muttered as he relaxed his scarf. You can thank your classmate, he just used your one warning. He faced his students, or those that might make it through the day. He spoke loudly and clearly. You are not licensed. Use of your quirk, not during the heroics course, or during training is forbidden. Bakugo scoffed and walked back to the line. What about quirkless cheaters? Mr. Midoriya's quirkless status is known to the school's faculty, and as such is a non-issue, as always stated bluntly as he began walking to the next activity. Come on, I want to be done before noon today. Quirkless? Doesn't Deku mean worthless? Stop wasting time, you'll have plenty to gossip if you make it through the day, Aizawa shouted as he stopped at track lines. 50-meter dash, go in pairs of 2. The two first students, Iida and a girl with a frog-like body, stepped up to go first. Going down the line, Jiro's eyes widened as she realized that standing next to the snarling Bakugo meant that she would run concurrent with the explosive teen. Shuffling her feet for a second, she nervously tapped Izuku on the shoulder, drawing him from his conversation with Momo. Deku, could you maybe switch with me? Izuku looked next to her and noticed that Bakugo was glaring daggers at him. Recognizing that racing next to him would be damaging to her hearing, even with the earplugs, he nodded. And it's Izuku, not Deku. Blushing, Jiro bowed low. Oh geez, I'm so sorry, I just heard him shout that and thought it was your name. Izuku waved off her concerns. It's alright, I never properly introduced myself anyway, so don't get too hung up on it. Just wish I knew why he seems to dislike me so much. Fucking Deku, you can pretend you don't know me for as long as you like, you're still a quirkless loser who ran away, Bakugo yelled at him. Izuku rolled his eyes and turned away from Bakugo so he could continue his conversation with Momo, only to be grabbed by his arm and forced to turn back around. Do you think that you can just disappear for a few years and act like you weren't always everyone's bitch? Aizawa sighed and stopped the next group of students before they ran. This was a hero school and not a daycare, so unless there was a physical altercation, it wasn't his business to play parent to a bunch of teenagers. The students watched the confrontation. The green-haired boy seemed nice, or at least not as loud and angry as the ashen-haired teen. Momo, however, had enough of Bakugo's attitude. Look, Bakugo was it, she said, obviously remembering the student's name, but acting like she didn't was one of the first tactics at asserting dominance. Whatever problem you have with Izuku is in the past, her long legs allowing her to confidently stride up to the smaller teen in a few steps before firmly planting herself in front of him, and it will stay in the past unless you want to push it. She jabbed him in the chest with her finger while he snarled, because if you act like some of those others from his past, I will destroy you. She glared down at the boy who wasn't intimidated in the slightest. Fuck you, Bakugo stepped up, pushing himself against her, never having to back down from a fight. He raised his shoulders and turned up his palms. Izuku placed his metallic hand on Bakugo's chest and effortlessly pushed him back. At this, Bakugo finally took stock of the boy he used to know and noticed some significant changes. "Look, if before the incident I knew you, then I am willing to apologize that I don't remember you now," Izuku said sincerely. "Even if we weren't friends, we can try. So how about we introduce ourselves? I am Izuku Midoriya," sticking out his metallic hand with a smile. Bakugo snarled, "Fucking Deku, trying to pretend you forgot all about me." Katsuki looked down. "What the fuck are you wearing?" Izuku paused, then looked at his outfit. "The gym uniforms Aizawa gave us?" he questioned. "No dumbus." Bakugo grabbed Izuku's arm and yanked. "The fuck? Hey dude, that's not how you shake hands," Izuku chuckled. "Take this thing off, Deku," Bakugo ordered him. "Pant," Izuku sighed. "That's my arm now," he said solemnly as he pulled up his sleeve further, exposing where the Nanomachines connected to his body. "That's a cool quirk," Mina cried out. "What's it called?" Izuku looked at Momo and shrugged, unsure of what to do. The raven-haired beauty coughed, drawing attention. "It's not a quirk." "What do you mean it's not a quirk?" Iida asked as he finished jogging over from his run. Izuku looked at his potential classmates. "I got hurt about a year ago. A couple of villains really messed me up." Izuku rotated his arm as he looked it over longingly. "Nearly killed me. Frankly, it's a miracle that I'm even still alive." As a reward for his heroic actions that day, Izuku received the greatest level of care possible, Momo continued when she realized Izuku was really uncomfortable talking about his life to other people his age. His arm, and quite a bit of the rest of his body, was replaced by machines. "So no, it's not a quirk, he's 100% certified quirkless." Then she glared down at Katsuki, and a side effect of either the attack of the machines left him with amnesia. He forgot nearly all of his past. "So if you are smart, take the offer and start anew with him." Aizawa stepped in because this was taking too long for his liking, and he had a hot date with a cold sleeping bag, which he had stored in a miniature fridge under his desk, along with fuse boxes. The pro hero spoke up, and when Yue was made aware of his quirkless status, he was required to take a secondary entrance exam to ensure his acceptance was not a fluke, and he passed with flying colors. Which is why he's the only one who doesn't have to worry about being expelled today, since I already know he has potential. So that means the rest of you better try a lot harder than you already were. The other students were left with a litany of questions that they wanted answered, but the threat of expulsion pushed them to double their focus on passing. Each pair that ran exceeded their previous bests from middle school. Then it came to Izuku, and it was Katsuki's turn to run. "DCH, whatever loser, so you got a metal arm, it's just going to slow you down in this," he sneered as he braced his shoulders to blast off the ground. "Get ready," Aizawa shouted. Izuku hopped from one foot to another as he loosened himself up. "If that's what you think, then by all means, Bakugo." Izuku chuckled as he knelt into a sprinter's position. "Start." Both boys took off to an explosive start. With a cloud of smoke Bakugo left behind, it obscured the student's vision, when a few seconds later the testing machine beeped. Midoriya, 2.67 seconds. Bakugo, 4.13 seconds. "Impressive speed, Midoriya," Iida complimented as Izuku went back to stand in line. Izuku nodded in praise. "Thanks, Iida. Looks like Momo and Jiro is up next." He turned his attention to the two girls going next. Momo began making a racing bicycle before Aizawa started the run. Jiro curled an eyebrow at her. "Seriously?" The buxom teen shrugged. "It works, doesn't it?" "I guess," Jiro said as she readied herself to run. When Aizawa called for them to begin, Momo took off and completed the 50 meters in just under 5 seconds. With the rocker trailing behind at 5.7 seconds. As they both walked back to the group that was moving on to the long jump, Jiro spoke up. "Izuku is right, you do make big stuff like crazy." "What was that?" Momo looked at the girl she was walking with. "Izuku said that you tend to make big stuff when something smaller would work just as well," Jiro responded. "A racing bike got you a good score, but wouldn't roller skates have done the job as well, but taken up a lot less of your quirk?" "No, I understood that from the big stuff comment, but you called him Izuku," Momo smirked. "What? No, I didn't," Jiro stammered. Momo covered her mouth as she giggled. "It's fine, just don't let Izuku hear you say that." Jiro froze. "Why is it bad?" Suddenly nervous that she would have offended the boy twice since meeting him. "Nothing bad, he just turns into this mushy stuttering mess, and he's super cute." Momo thought about all the times she made him blush before he got more comfortable with her. "Cute. So, what are you and Midoriya, a thing?" she inquired. Momo ended up in the back of the line standing next to a blonde boy with a black streak in his hair and a pink-skinned girl. "Well, we've been dating for the past, 9 months. "Wait, you're a couple?" Jiro exclaimed. "Yeah, him and his mother have been living with us for a little over a year and a half," Momo continued. Jiro's eyes widened. "He lives with you?" Well no, we got an apartment together, the raven-haired teen corrected Jiro. Mina twirled on her feet as the line moved forward. You two live together in a cozy apartment? She inquired further, excited to hear such juicy gossip on the first day. Well, cozy is one way to put it, Momo nodded her head. It's a one-bedroom, so we share a bed. Kaminari began coughing violently. You, and him, he said pointing to Izuku, who was making small talk with a boy who had a tail, in a bed. Every night, together. Momo suddenly blushed at realizing what the boy was implying. We aren't doing that, we just cuddle, and hold each other. Still though, Kaminari laced his fingers behind his head. Momo groaned as she realized by the end of the day, everyone is going to know that her and Izuku have an intimate relationship. After all the tests were finished, and everyone made it back to the area where they started, Aizawa instructed them to look at a display board. Sitting at the top was Izuku, who outperformed all the other students, except for in a few instances, such as Achako throwing a ball into space. Mineta looked at the ground and began sniffling. He was at the bottom of the scoreboard. Aizawa shut off the display and spoke up, oh, and about the expulsion, I lied. Half of the students started griping about how they worked so hard for no reason then. Aizawa shouted loudly, no brats, you work so hard to push yourselves, there isn't any point of improving if we don't know your limits. Izuku chuckled, and he wasn't going to expel anyone for this anyway, he hates stuff like this. What you're talking about, Midoriya, Mineta rounded on the cyborg. Eraserhead has petitioned for the entrance exam to change every year since he's been a teacher. He thinks it's illogical to test for combat skills when some of the best quirks either don't work on robots or aren't used for fighting, Izuku explained. Just think about the youthful hero, Recovery Girl, one of the greatest quirks of our generation, well hers really, but healing quirks are so rare that hospitals and other agencies are desperate to snatch them up the moment they even get a provisional license, Izuku continued his speech. But most of those people tend to not have any combat application for their quirks, which means UA has turned away a lot of students who would otherwise make great heroes, just because they don't have a lot of initial power behind them. Aizawa shrugged, kid's right. I have expelled over 100 students in my time as a teacher, but none on the first day. The entrance exam is illogical, and UA loses out on a lot of talent because of it. The pro hero yawned, class is dismissed for the day, be ready because tomorrow you are all going to be put through your paces. After everyone changed back into their school uniform, Momo and Izuku were walking to the entrance so they could take the train back to their side of town when Izuku spotted movement. Izuku tapped his girlfriend's shoulder. Hey, I'll catch up in just a minute, he said to her as he nodded in the direction of Bakugo. Hey Bakugo, Izuku shouted to catch the boy's attention. Hey, wait up, he said as he jogged over. The fuck do you want, Deku? Bakugo growled. Look, I don't remember you, Izuku said. I don't know what our history was, I don't know if I was a complete asshole to you, if I kicked your dog or always picked on you, and if I was that guy, then I truly am sorry, because I'm a different person from then. Izuku stretched and stood up straight and proper. But I saw you aim your palms at Momo, Izuku's mechanical eye glowed a soft blue. If you ever, Izuku's robotic arm shot out faster than Kitsuki could react at that close range, and squeezed causing Kitsuki to hiss in pain. Aim your quirk at her like that again. You will not have a chance to beg for mercy. Izuku waited a second before releasing his grip. Do I make myself clear? He didn't stand around to listen to the response, he had better things to do, like sit on the couch and watch a movie with his wonderful girlfriend. The next day of classes was much more mundane. English and mathematics, while necessary for a rounded education, were actually far below the standards that were taught at Aichi. Lunch finally rolled around, and Izuku slumped into a seat next to Momo, a distinct difference in their lunches. Izuku's was a lean meal full of protein and carbs to provide his body with the necessary fuel for working out, while Momo's on the opposite scale was full of high fat and sugar content food for her to make use of her quirk. May we sit with you? A reserved voice asked. Izuku and Momo looked up to see Jiro and a few other students from their class with her. Izuku swallowed before replying. Absolutely, it would be good to get to know our classmates some more. I'm Izuku Midoriya, he said while sticking his hand out for anyone to grab. Kaminari excitedly grabbed and shook it, causing Izuku to chuckle. Seeing some people know how to shake a hand, he joked about how Kitsuki had just grabbed his arm. Jiro quietly took the open seat next to Izuku. Thank you, Kaminari, I didn't really get to show off my quirk yesterday, but I can cause a huge discharge of electricity, he introduced himself. The pink girl slammed herself into the seat, shoving Kaminari down a spot, and I'm Mina Shido, I came to make acid, she said excitedly. Momo wiped her lips with a cloth she made using her quirk. I am Momo Yaoyorozu, my quirk is creation, I can make anything using the lipocytes in my body. Lipo, what? Mina said slowly. Fat cells, Jiro answered for her. Hey, Jiro Kyoka, my quirk is earphone jack. I can plug my earlobes into stuff and send out the sound of my own heartbeat, she told them her quirk. Hypersensitive hearing, useful for reconnaissance. Length of how far they extend and musculature needed to manipulate the extended earlobes must be incredible and finely tuned to allow precision movement. Everyone at the table besides Momo turned towards the sound of muttering. It was Izuku as his hand flew across the pages at incredible speed, making detailed notes on the quirks that they had said. Momo set down her cup with a clink. "Izuku, you're doing it again," she softly reminded him. What? Oh," Izuku said as he noticed the attention he was getting. The teen chuckled to himself. Sorry about that. I just get excited when I hear about people's quirks, since I don't have one of my own." "But you have a quirk," Kaminari replied as he pointed at Izuku's arm. "It's technically a prosthetic, a really advanced one, but no, I still don't have a quirk," Izuku shrugged. "So, moving away from that awkward topic," Mina said. "You both looked bored in classes today." Momo sighed and looked up at the ceiling. "I know that maths was really simple. I had expected a higher level than that at UA, but I guess they're famous for their heroics program and not their general education." "Simple?" Kaminari shouted. "I could barely follow along." The blonde boy turned to Izuku. "Come on, us guys gotta stick together. That stuff was really hard, right?" he asked hopefully. Izuku shook his head. "Sorry, I have to agree with Momo, so far what we've seen isn't that difficult." Mina groaned and laid her head on the table. "Oh no, we were bored because it was too hard, they were bored because they are too smart." Izuku looked at the two. "Well, if it helps, I could always do some tutoring. It's the start of the year, and that would help your grades more now than trying to cram before finals." He offered, recalling how it was at Aichi with some of the more party-oriented students struggling because they blew off schoolwork for a while. Mina grabbed Izuku's hands and held them. "Oh, my hero," she joked. "For real though, you're a lifesaver, Midoriya." "Is that offer for tutoring open to anyone?" Jiro asked. Izuku smiled at the girl sitting next to him. "Of course, it would be awfully rude of me to only give tutoring to some classmates and not others. So, you are more than welcome to join." Blushing, Jiro looked back down at her food. Thanks, Midoriya." The rest of the lunch period was spent quietly eating, the bell signifying the end of the first half of their classes and starting the second. More importantly, however. "It's me," a loud and heroic voice shouted from the other side of the door. Which a moment later was flung open. Through the door, like a normal person, All Might declared as he leaned forward into the room. The number one hero hummed as he strutted into the classroom. The students all had excited conversations about being taught by the number one. "What would be the point in making you the greatest heroes?" All Might stated. "If we didn't have a foundation to build on. Which is why I, All Might, will build that foundation in foundational hero studies." He said the foundation a lot, Izuku whispered to Momo, causing her to suppress a laugh. She swatted at his arm. "Stop it, he's our teacher now, we need to show him some respect." "And what better way to develop those skills than through battle," he said while holding up an index card with the word battle on it. "And to go with your first battle, we have here in these suitcases, your specially designed costumes. What is a hero without a fancy suit? It's important to look the part," All Might finished as he pushed a button, and out of the wall slid numbered cases. "After you change in the locker room, meet me at grounds beta," All Might said as he rushed out of the room. In the locker rooms, all the students were excited. "Oh man, I'm gonna look so manly in this," Kirishima shouted as he stripped. "I'm gonna get all the ladies' attention with this," Mineta boldly stated as he pulled up his armored diaper. Izuku quickly slipped into his suit and began to button it up. A whistle drew his attention, looking quite dashing. "My chic friend," Aoyama said from behind him. Izuku blushed at the compliment and finished with his jacket. He wore a white long-sleeved dress shirt and an emerald green waistcoat. Buttoning up and tying his tie into a Balthus knot. Izuku slipped on his overcoat and pulled on his two gloves, one white with green stitching, the other over his metallic hand was green with white stitching. Aoyama purred. "Very dashing indeed." Izuku quickly exited the locker room and made his way to the field. A few other students had made it out there before he did, so he got a good look at what they were wearing, except one girl. Izuku shrieked in fright and covered his eyes. Naked girl," Izuku shouted, startling everyone. "Turn off, turn off, turn off." Young Midoriya, All Might, rushed over and prevented any students from getting too close to Izuku as he recalled the last time he saw the boy suddenly scream out. "Oh god, it won't turn off." Izuku kept his eyes shut. Momo just came out onto the field and saw Izuku in a panic. "Izuku sweetie, what's wrong?" she asked with clear worry in her tone. "There is a naked girl standing right there." Izuku pointed in the direction of a floating pair of gloves, which was Hagakure. "Naked girl?" Momo looked back and forth for a moment before she figured out the problem. "Well, turn off your HRTI, moron," she shouted at him. I'm trying, I think, Izuku said as he slowly lowered his hands. Yep, it's not red now, Momo told him as he looked in his eyes. Huffing, Izuku looked at his classmates. Sorry about that everyone, I just panicked a little. All Might walked closer once the boy had calmed down a little. Young Midoriya, what was all that about? The pro hero inquired. I might have turned on my HRTI and well, Hagakure is sort of naked, Izuku blushed and muttered. HRTI? Kaminari sounded out. High resolution thermal imaging, Momo responded. His replaced eye functioned like a camera. The nanomachines work as a lens that focus the infrared light through a mercury-cadmium telluride phased array. She explained the science of how a thermal camera works. As a result, 1/30th of a second later processes those images as a thermogram and then sends an electrical impulse to his brain, allowing him to see into the infrared spectrum, she continued, even though most students had gotten lost a few seconds after she started. So even though Hagakure is invisible, she still produces body heat that he can see, and based on the lack of, Momo gestured in the direction of the gloves and boots. Clothing, it would seem that Izuku here managed to get an eyeful of our classmate. Hagakure squealed and pulled Shoji in front of her as he was the largest of her classmates. Oh my gosh, that's so embarrassing, she cried out. I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to, I swear, Izuku quickly said, lest he be labeled a pervert. It's not like you're ugly, you have nice soft features and are impressive. Momo stopped his ranting by clearing her throat loudly. Izuku sweetie, I think we can all tell this was an accident, you wouldn't have known that her costume was so minimal, but try not have it happen again in the future, Momo said. Izuku nodded his head quickly. As the rest of the students came out they looked at the scene in confusion. What's going on here? Iida asked as he came up in his loud, night-looking hero suit. Sigh riveted, Midoriya saw Hagakure naked, she bluntly said. Nice, Kaminari said, then paused. Wait, she's the invisible one right, then noticed a pair of floating gloves. I mean cool, I guess, she's not wearing much but gloves and boots, so congratulations, I think, he said with trepidation, unsure how to figure out why seeing a naked girl who was invisible was that much of a deal. All Might noticed he had all the students, how about we try to ignore that any of this even happened, okay? He said loudly, and turned back to his students. So yesterday you all got to see the limit of your quirks in Izawa's test. A few students grumbled about mean teachers, but All Might continued on regardless. Because of knowing those limits, most of you will likely have never used them on another person. He saw fewer people than he would have liked nodding their heads. However, a big part of being a hero is stopping villains, and while I do not like it, that requires that sometimes you fight them and use your quirks on another person. All Might pulled out 2 boxes. Because of this harsh reality you will need to practice them, safely, under the careful guidance of UA, the hero said. So, for this exam we will practice a scenario where we have 2 teams of 2 students each, go head to head. In one box, he hefted up his left hand. Are each of your names, I will draw them, and you will be put on that team, after which, he raised his right hand. I will draw a ball that will determine the matchup. Iida raised his hand. Sir, wouldn't it be better for us to choose our own teams, since many agencies work with other heroes or sidekicks regularly, Iida said from the experience of seeing his family's agency work. All Might nodded, true many agencies will cover specific areas, and as such their heroes and sidekicks would get used to working in teams together. However, who would like to guess why I am randomizing you all? Momo raised her hand when she saw that no one else was, because most of us graduating will not have a long-standing established relationship with any agency, barring a few exceptions, so whenever we work with someone it will likely be our first time, and we need to be comfortable in a scenario where we do not know everyone's strengths or weaknesses. All Might smiled. Quite right young Yaoyorozu, in addition sometimes using the HSN or Hero Support Network, you may receive a call for backup and not know all the details of what you are walking into. Iida stepped back and bowed low, apologizing for questioning. No, in fact it is a brilliant question young Iida, one I am sure comes from seeing your family's agency work. That reminds me of a time I worked with Ingenium to catch what All Might started to say before realizing he was wasting time. Clearing his throat, he brought back the conversation. Anyway, when I call your names please speak up clearly, so that your partner can find you. So, don't you think the hero course is just the greatest? Mineta asked as he wiped his chin from imagining all the girls' costumes. Izuku nodded. Yeah, this place is amazing, I've wanted to go here ever since I was a little kid. I never thought I'd get a chance when I was diagnosed quirkless, but I guess sometimes dreams come true, he said as he carried the bomb up to the top floor. So, like I get your robot and stuff, Mineta hummed as they walked through the building. But what can you do? Oh, besides enhanced strength, speed, and durability, my eye can function as a high-speed, thermal, night vision, and X-ray camera, Izuku said as he tapped the side of his head. X-ray, so then you can see through the girl's clothes, Mineta gasped. Izuku stumbled as he was walking, and no, it's not like that, like an X-ray, you know, at a doctor's office, bones and stuff. Mineta picked his nose, oh that's kind of boring then. So what's your quirk? Izuku tried to be polite at the offhanded dismissal he was given for his abilities. Mineta pulled a bowl off the top of his head and stuck it to the wall. I can pull these off my head and stick them to stuff, they stay longer if I had a really good poop that day. Izuku's lips twitched into what someone could say was a smile. Great, then he stopped. Actually, that is great, I have a pretty nice plan. Kirishima and Kaminari walked into the building. So where do you think they went? Kaminari asked his partner. Kirishima shrugged. Not sure, I hope they didn't run too far. I want a manly fight, he said loudly, and slammed his fists together, hardening them just before impact, making a satisfying sound. Well I hope we find Mineta and Midoriya soon, I don't want to get timed out, Kaminari said as he stuck his head in a room on the 3rd floor. M, and we're both Ks. Kirishima shook his head and looked at his partner, what are you talking about? Our family names. Theirs start with M and ours start with K, Kaminari pointed out. Kirishima nodded. Oh yeah they do, that's weird. He shrugged and went up to the 4th floor. Kaminari followed him. Think that's by choice? Nah, All Might said it was going to be random, plus who would choose to pair people up based on something weird like that, Kirishima said as he picked up the pace, they were running out of time. This is getting boring, Zero said as he leaned back in his chair. Can't you tell them the villains are on the 5th floor or something All Might? Sorry, but no, All Might responded. There will be many times when you are patrolling and not find anything, it could be one of the most boring times of your life, but you need to remain alert as the enemy could always surprise you. So, when you finally showed up, Izuku taunted from the end of the hallway. Both boys on the hero team turned to face him. Heroes, you're too late, you have less than 5 minutes to disarm my bomb, but it will take me less than that to defeat you, he laughed villainously getting into his role. Kirishima smiled. Oh no villain today, you will be thwarted, as he rushed his opponent, who braced himself for a punch to the face. A hardened fist collided with a resounding clang. Wah. Kirishima paused as he stared at his opponent. Dude you have a quirk just like me, he said with glee. Izuku smirked and reared back his fist. Nope, he replied before delivering an uppercut to Kirishima's stomach and sending him into the ceiling, where he didn't fall back down. What, dude, what? Kirishima said as he wiggled on the ceiling stuck to something. Come on, not manly, let me down. Kaminari looked up and saw that numerous sticky purple balls were all over the ceiling, creating a trap for when someone was knocked up into it. The blonde boy started laughing at his teammates in a precarious situation before sensing a presence behind him. Ami wa Mushinderu, Mineta lisped out as he stepped out from a doorway behind his target. Then Nani, Kaminari said as he was assailed with purple balls, trying in vain to block the assault from such a close range, eventually tripping backwards over one and landing on the floor, sticking to it. All Might's voice came over the speakers and the villain team won. Kirishima ceased his motions and slumped forward. Oh man, I wanted to be manly and have a fight, he said sadly. Izuku shrugged. Sorry, learn from one of the best, never fight if you don't have to. Can you get me down at least? That uppercut was awesome though, Kirishima said. Izuku paused. Hey Mineta, how do we get them down? Oh, you need to use mineral oil, Mineta told him. Already pulling out a small bottle to free Kaminari. How much do you have? Izuku asked as he obviously didn't carry any. Mineta eyes his bottle. Not enough, especially since we have to get the bomb down too. Get the bomb down? Kaminari said as he lifted his back off the ground, he was still trapped at his legs. Yeah, we used Mineta's quirk to stick the bomb to the ceiling, Izuku explained. Figured if we could trap you, neither one of you could reach the bomb, so we'd win by timing you out. He finished and reached for his headpiece. Hey, All Might, can you have Mono come here, we're gonna need her help getting Kirishima down, Izuku explained to his teacher. All Might looked at the young heiress, so it seems young Midoriya requires your aid. Over the next few rounds Izuku spent his time muttering about quirks as he detailed every aspect he could of them, completely oblivious to the atmosphere of unease around him. The villain team of Shoji and Ejiro, even with their impressive strength and fighting skill, fell quickly to Bakugo's overwhelming onslaught. Koda being on his team was irrelevant to him wanting a total victory. Sato and Zero tried the same tactic that Midoriya's team had used against Momo and Jiru, but they were swiftly defeated when the two girls had surprised both of them with ranged attacks, and Zero's surprise attack was foiled by Jiru hearing him in the other room clearly. Well, I think today has been a great success, beyond a few cuts and scrapes and a bit of hurt pride, All Might proudly said. We all learned some very important things about our quirks and how to use them. After the exercise was over and they had changed back into their clothes, the one students returned to homeroom to drop off their costumes. Dude, that was crazy. How did you make your skin all like black and hard and stuff? Kirishima asked Izuku. Oh, the nanomachines will harden in response to trauma, and their ability to adapt gives them extreme durability, Izuku said. That's so manly. How did you learn about that? Kirishima said, bouncing on his feet. Some jerk swung a katana at me, tried to kill me, because I'm dating Momo, Izuku said, recalling how So's reacted to him and Momo's relationship. What? That's crazy, dude, Kirishima exclaimed. The witch Izuku shrugged. Aichi's crazy like that, I guess. As Izuku and Momo walked towards the train station, a voice called out to them. Hey, wait up, Hagakure said, waving frantically. I need to talk to you, Midoriya. The couple stopped and faced the girl and patiently waited for her to catch up. I need to ask you something, she said once she was close enough. Sure, is it about tutoring? Izuku guessed. No, okay, yes, could I join in the tutoring too, Hagakure said. But that's not what I wanted to ask you. Earlier today, she shuffled in place. Oh yeah, Izuku blushed, remembering he saw her. Even if it was a thermograph being as high resolution as it was, there wasn't a detail he couldn't see. I'm really sorry, I want you to look at me like that again, Hagakure blurted out. Izuku choked on his words. What, you, I couldn't, dating Momo, he stumbled in his speech. Ugh, Hagakure groaned. Not like that, I mean, you can see my face. Could you maybe draw me? She requested. I don't have anything of what I look like, Hagakure said sadly. I've never seen my face before and my parents haven't either. Izuku paused and understood what she was asking for. Hagakure had an amazing quirk, but there was a hidden downside to it. I'm not a good artist or anything, he started to say. Please, I'll pay you, Hagakure quickly said, hoping to keep him interested at her strange request. Momo quickly walked over and put her hand on the upset girl's shoulder. Izuku would be delighted to draw you, give us time to get his skill up, so you have something really special to show your parents. She smiled at the invisible girl. Really? Hagakure squeaked out, and Izuku nodded. Oh, thank you. I mean it, I will pay you back for this. She shouted with joy as she ran off to catch her own train. That's a nice thing you're doing, Momo, Izuku said as he hugged his girlfriend. Me? I'm not the one who is getting art lessons, Momo laughed as she walked off, leaving Izuku dumbfounded. Dang it, he said in defeat and shuffled after her. Dang vultures, Izuku muttered as he and Momo slipped through the crowd of reporters. Over the years he garnered a distaste for the media. It all began when he saw a report coming out about one of the Yaoyorozu products and he put two and two together that it was just a smear against them. Being so close to the situation, he found out that, well, what was being reported was technically correct, it used the absolute worst possible figures and framed it in a negative light. Then he began to relook over some reports that he might have just blindly listened to. Turns out almost none of what was being reported was what was really happening, but instead what sort of might be if you looked at it with a biased viewpoint. Momo tugged at Izuku's arm. Nope, not today, mister, she said firmly as she dragged him away from giving the reporters something that deserved to make the front page. Izuku growled and glared at the news media as he followed his girlfriend past the gate and onto the school grounds. The couple passed Izawa, who was on his way to disperse the reporters and give the students a chance to get onto the grounds. Later, while Izuku went over his finely written notes, Izawa came in late with a few of his classmates trailing behind. It would seem the reporters managed to delay enough students for some to be late. Well, class, Izawa said as he took his seat at his desk. I want to praise you for not screwing up too badly with All Might. He's a relatively new teacher, he said out loud. Under his breath he added, brand new. But no one did anything irrational, so that's good, he concluded. Now what I wanted to do was have you all decide on who would be a class president and vice president. However, it would seem that we need to cover, Izawa said as he turned and wrote on the chalkboard. Out to talk to the press, he finished and set down the chalk. Step 1, don't, Izawa said. They are an industry that exists to sell papers and airtime. In many cases it's better for them to twist what you say against you for conflict. A few students nodded and wrote down what he was saying. Uraraka raised her hand, but sir, aren't we going to be interacting with the press often when we get started? How are we supposed to build our reputation without speaking with them, she asked. Izawa wrote on the board again. Step 2, how to talk to the press when they won't leave you alone. For a lot of the big named heroes, the press is too scared to be overly critical of them, even if they have a nasty reputation among their peers, Izawa said while looking at Todoroki. So you need to make sure that when you talk to these vultures, that you are clear, concise, and never say anything more than you have to, Izawa finished. I'll talk with Nezu about getting the second-year introduction packet to media relations, since that's when you will be starting internships and doing light field work. For now though, Aizawa said as he crawled into his sleeping bag. "The class representatives, I don't care how it gets done, just have it ready by lunch." The more excited students shouted about wanting the position, but Iida's swift intervention turned it into a simple vote. Which everyone had planned on anyway because that was how it always was done. 3 votes each, it's a tie for first between Yaoyorozu and Midoriya, Aizawa said. "So you two can sort it out for yourself," he grumbled as he rolled over in his bag. "Yeah, power couple," Mina shouted. "I don't really think I do a good job as president, Momo," Izuku rubbed the back of his head. "That's why I voted for you, you're already such a good leader." Momo covered her mouth and snorted. "That's the same reason I voted for you, Izuku," she fell into a fit of laughter. I don't think it really matters too much," Momo shrugged. Aizawa said, "It really doesn't, now go to lunch." In the cafeteria the students paired off differently, Tokoyami and Iida had fallen into a discussion on classical literature in line, and that carried over to the table. Kaminari, Shiro, Sato, Kirishima and Mineta were having a contest to see who could shove the most food in their mouths without swallowing, and still saying plus ultra. So Izuku set down his tray and yawned. "Today's going pretty slow," he muttered. "Oh, does Zuku need a nap?" Momo teased. "Just some excitement," Izuku said as he shook his head. Almost as if the universe was designed to give him exactly what he wanted. The incredibly loud security system blared. Izuku heard a faint clatter of a tray hitting the ground. Jiro was doubled over in pain, clutching her ears. Before he could request Momo make some earplugs for her and the rest of the students, he saw a stampede quickly forming. Reaching out his arms, he wrapped them around Jiro before she could be tripped over and crushed by the unawares mob of students rushing for the exit. Jiro looked up at the sudden feeling of being held. She saw Izuku's firm chin and felt his tight muscles as he pulled her out of the path the scared students were running. She felt a blush forming on her cheeks. Izuku's glowing eyes showed a bright ethereal blue as he looked around the room. "Momo," she heard his call out. "It's the press, they're on the south lawn," he said as he pointed at a solid wall. "We aren't under attack, we need to get everyone to calm down." The black-haired bombshell nodded and started to form a megaphone. But Jiro was tired of sitting on the sidelines. She shot her earlobes forward and up so they were above people before pulsing her quirk. The rhythmic sound of her rapid heartbeat drawing attention from everyone. Momo nodded at the assistance she was given and turned on the megaphone. "Thank you for your attention. If you would look out the windows, you would see that the intruders are nothing more than the reporters from earlier this morning. They seem to have bypassed the security and are being confronted by the teachers as we speak. So please form an orderly line and head towards the designated waiting area," she said firmly as she turned off the microphone. And grabbed her food to scarf down the rest of it before gathering the one as students. Izuku said as he swiveled his head around. "That's strange," he muttered. Because of Jiro's close proximity to the boy, she heard him muttering. "Who could have melted the gate?" "What?" she asked as the ringing in her ears died down. Izuku looked down as his eyes changed from blue to match his mother's green. "Oh, Jiru-chan," Izuku stammered as he realized he was still holding the girl to his chest. He quickly released her and bowed in embarrassment. "I'm so sorry, I just saw that the crowd was going to run into you, and I didn't want you to get hurt, so I should have let you go sooner," he apologized profusely. Jiru's earlobes twisted around themselves in loop subconsciously. "It's fine," Jiru said. "So, you said something about the gate being melted?" she inquired. Oh yeah," Izuku nodded as he and Jiru walked with the other one as students, following them from behind, while Momo led. "I decided to look around to see how they got in, and the back gate was completely destroyed, all 4 security layers, just gone. So I tried to look around the school to see if I could see anything else, because I don't think the reporters would be so bold as to just try and break in, that would be illegal." Jiru nodded in agreement. "Yeah, they would go far for a story, but breaking into UA, that's like breaking into a police station, when most every adult here can detain you, seems like a good way to end your career." "Yeah, that's why I don't think any of them did it, they just found it like that," Midoriya thought out loud. This was pretty bold of them to come onto the grounds, but for them to break in, to try, and get a few words out of All Might, doesn't make any sense. Izuku shrugged. "Oh well, hopefully the upgrades to their security system included cameras at the gate when they slammed shut," Izuku said. "I mean, why else would they consult with YI to do the upgrades?" "Wait, what?" Jiru questioned. "How do you know about UA's security system?" "Oh well, Yaoyorozu Industries," Izuku said, and pointed down the line of students towards Momo, who had to make a lasso to restrain Mineta, who tried to run off. The purple teen was shouting about needing his phone that he left in homeroom. And he didn't want to be bored standing around for an hour while they counted heads. "Oh yeah, wow, I feel dumb, it's not even a common last name," Jiru slapped her forehead. Izuku chuckled and patted her on the shoulder. It's okay, it happens to everyone sometimes, he consoled her. But anyway, as I was saying, during my second entrance exam, Momo and the principal supposedly worked out a deal for YI to upgrade the security system that UA has. Seems something I said about All Might concerned him. I heard they got a sweet deal because Momo and myself were attending, and Mamanashi and Papa Ringo wanted their darling daughter and her future husband, he air quoted, to be safe in the school. Oh, then you're really taken then, Jiro said softly, her forming crush, crushed at the idea that Midoriya and Yaoyorozu would be together and she had no chance with this kind boy. Yeah, Momo is amazing, Izuku smiled, then he looked at Jiro's crestfallen face. Not that you aren't, you're pretty amazing too, Izuku tapered off. Don't see me the same way, Jiro said as tears stung her eyes. I shouldn't at least, Izuku said under his breath as he quickened his pace to get away from the awkward conversation. Jiro on the other hand easily heard his last words. He shouldn't, does that mean he does, she wondered as she wiped a stray tear from her cheek. After the students had all gone home for the day, Nezu and the other teachers all sat in a conference room. Nezu cleared his throat. Thank you all for remaining behind today to go over the incident we had earlier this afternoon, the suited animal nodded. All the reporters all received harsh reprimands from their individual stations for being dumb enough to enter the grounds of UA without invitation. The principal pushed a button and turned on a slide. When I called and inquired about the quirks of the people in their employ, none had a quirk that could have destroyed our south gate like that. So do we know who did? Midnight asked. Nezu slowly began to cackle. Yes we do, he laughed maniacally. With the upgrades to our security, provided by Yaoyorozu Industry, we have more camera coverage than the average British street. He showed multiple camera feeds of two figures. One a blue-haired lanky man covered in hands followed by a well-dressed swirling figure of black mist. We do not have names, he said as the footage showed their trek through the campus. We do know they tried to access a computer and failed. The feed showed the hand-covered man throw a tantrum and rot a computer at his touch before the alarm shut off and the mist man opened a portal that they both left through. These two have very powerful quirks that are not registered in any database, Nezu said as he sipped his tea. Which can only mean one thing. Someone who has the authority to register quirks erased them from the national directory. Meaning these two are most likely well connected, as always said. Understanding that kids just don't disappear like they used to anymore, not when quirks are recorded so often. Precisely, someone is helping them, to what end we don't know yet, and how far up it goes as well, Nezu admitted. For the time being anyone who is not in this room is not to be trusted. Shigaraki thrashed around violently in the bar. Damn it, their encryption, the program the doctor gave us didn't work. It was supposed to work, how dare they raise their defense stat, he raged. Kurogiri wiped a glass. It is unfortunate that they updated their security so suddenly, but that was not something we could have planned around, the dark man agreed. Now we don't know where All Might will be, Shigaraki screamed and threw a chair. A television on the wall that was completely untouched, in fact it was the most pristine object in the bar, flickered to life. Sensei, I'm sorry, the plan failed, Shigaraki wailed. It is alright, I have heard what happened, and while disappointing, was something completely out of your control, All for One's voice rasped. We won't be able to force an encounter with All Might and UA on our terms, but there is another, an annual event that he attends, the villainous mentor pitched the beginnings of a plan to his disciple. A scripted encounter, the UA Sports Festival, yes, every year, him, and all his hero buddies, tons of civilians, national, no, global attention, Shigaraki stood up with an evil gleam in his eye. A perfect place to debut, we'll need more people. All for One laughed, yes that is exactly what I meant. But when will be the right time to attack, Shigaraki pondered. You will know it, when you feel it, All for One's voice faded out as the television turned off. Let's go, we need to recruit some more people, Shigaraki ordered Kurogiri as the two left the bar in search of allies, a lot of them. Thanks for watching this video. Part 3 is over. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. And also check out the playlist that I have created and enjoy. Link is in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.